William Rosary here, one year like Warirote, Iboru, Iboya, Ibochichi. Odu Oche Trupon. In this Odu is born the art of carving wood, the ache that we have within our hands to be able to create beautiful pieces of art by carving wood. In this Odu is also born the small Osum that lives inside Oya Sopera, because there's two, one that lives inside and one that lives outside. In this Odu is where the power of Shango, or rather the invincible power of Shango, is born. In this Odu, it talks about the basket, or rather how we cannot carry water in a basket because it has holes. This has many meanings, to where we cannot accomplish what we desire in life if there are incomplete portions of a plan or an idea in our mind or in reality. It's as if we're carrying water in a basket. This also alludes to problems with our health, specifically our kidneys. Orumila says we must be wary of hormone imbalance within our body that affects our kidneys, the perforation of the kidneys and other illnesses that surround the kidney. And this Odung is born where we venerate Ibeji, where we directly feed Ibeji. And for those who have this Odung as their life Odung in Awofaka or Ikofafum, it is important for you to have Ibeji. And if you don't have Ibeji, receive Ibeji. In this Odung is born the process of the Middle Passage, or rather what transpired during the Middle Passage. Whereas many different types of people were taken from Africa, forced onto boats to cross this ocean, were enslaved and distributed throughout the Caribbean. This process was born in this Odum, unfortunately. In this Odum, it talks about afflictions of the skin, rashes, pimples, sores, scabies, herpes, hemorrhoids, so on and so forth. It is important for those who have this Odum as their life Odum to be very wary of problems with the skin and not to equate it with old age, but to actually go be proactive about it and check it out with a doctor. Okay? There's some other taboos that can affect the skin, which I'll go into it a little bit. In this Odum, the herbs of this Odum, the Ewe, are yerba mora, seraja, ají caballero, and yerba de sangre. Okay. Ají caballero is one of the one of the Ewes. Okay, it's a plant, but ají caballero is a pepper, a very hot pepper that is used in our tradition as well as in Palomayombe. Okay. Now, it is important for those with this Odum to moderate their intake of spices, or peppers rather, spicy foods, hot sauce. Okay, some of us enjoy that. Some of us are very sensitive to it. For those with this Odum that are sensitive, consume spice in moderation, because spice can affect your health. It can affect your skin. It can lead to hemorrhoids and other afflictions of the skin. In this Odum is very strong and aggressive Odum. People with this Odum tend to have a very strong character, tend to be very ambitious. And those are all the good things, not necessarily confrontational, but very aggressive. They know what they want, or tend to know what they want. Okay. However, in this Odum, there can be many character flaws, which a person with this Odum needs to focus on correcting or moderating. In this Odum, it is important for this person to not only pursue what they want or to give to a person with the expectations of receiving something in return. This is one of the character flaws. Orumila says not to always expect something when you're being or when you're giving. Sometimes giving is just part of what we do, not always necessarily expecting something in return. Okay? This is one of the taboos of this Odu. Okay? In this Odu, the person with this Odu has to be wary of being indolent or lazy. Okay? Wanting others to do everything for us instead of doing it ourselves. Okay? Unless you've reached a position in your life where you have the ability to do that. More power to you. But Orula says not to become complacent in life. This is one of the taboos of this Odu. In this Odu, Orula says, again, to moderate your character and never to be cruel to those who are less fortunate than you. Because not only is that a character flaw, and that's not okay, but sometimes our Egum and our Orisha test us in this way, especially Eshu. In this Odun, one of the symbols of this Odun is the locomotive, the train. In this Odun, there's a reference to Ogwedai, which is an association with Ogun. So the symbol of this Odun is a locomotive, the train, the unstoppable train. And it is important in this Odun for us to have a symbol or have a toy, a metallic toy train, and we place it to Ogun to represent his strength and his indomitable personality, his unstoppable personality as well. In this Odun, it's important for us to take very good care of Shango, and from time to time to throw parties for Shango, or even drummings, and dedicate those parties or drummings to Shango, Afarifung Shango. In this Odun, it is important for us, it is important for people with this Odun not to be, or not to sell themselves short or sell themselves out. Okay? Orumila says in this Odun, never forget who you are, where you come from. Never forget your people. And I'll explain this more in one of the batakis of this Odun. So some of the taboos for this Odun are never to perform work for people, a skilled trade or work, working with your hands, creating something for someone for free. This is Osobo. It is also Osobo to do favors for people, which kind of go hand in hand. Hey, can you do this? Are you so good at this? Can you create this for me? Yeah, can you do it? You know, can you do me a favor? No, Osobo. Okay. You know, someone asks for, hey, can you do this? We can talk about it. We can work on it. You know, work on our price, or you know, I'll just do it for you, but I'm not doing you a favor. Okay. It's a little tricky, but this is Osobo. Badaki. There was a very famous king who was extremely powerful, very wealthy, had a very wealthy kingdom. He had many vendors, and he did really, really good business. This king, he had a slave who was his favorite. He was very close to this slave, and he befriended this slave, and he confided in this slave. And this slave knew many of the secrets of the king, as well as a lot of the secrets of his business. He knew all the vendors, he knew how much things cost, where they came from, so on and so forth. Now, in a neighboring town, another king who was very well known, he wasn't as strong and powerful, but he was very cunning, very intelligent king. And he devised a plan, and he called upon his favorite slave, a very beautiful young woman. And he told her, I want you to do something for me. And if you do this for me, you will gain more freedom. Not your freedom, but more freedom. You will have more freedoms to marry, to love, so on and so forth. He somewhat brainwashed her and manipulated her quite a bit. So he told the slave, you will gain more freedom. I want you to seduce this man, and by all means fall in love with him, and I'll even allow you to marry him. But you must take from him all the secrets from this other king, his vendors, where he gets his supplies from, how much they cost, how much he sells them for, so on and so forth. So this female slave of this other king infiltrated the more powerful king's kingdom, got to know the slave. They fell in love. They both fell in love. They truly fell in love with each other. But in the back of her mind, she thought about what her king had told her, that she would gain her freedom. And she thought, well, I can be free with, this new love, and we get married and have children and have a family. But that other king didn't care much about her. He just used her. So this other slave that held all the secrets from the other king divulged all his secrets to his love. Who wouldn't? And basically sold out his own king, sold out himself, sold out his own people. Because that other king gained all the secrets of this other kingdom and was able to conquer and control the other kingdom. Okay. In another Odun, the Odun of a parrot. So during the Middle Passage, these enslaved people on this boat with a crew and a captain experienced a rough storm during their travels. And they were traveling for weeks and months at a time on the ocean. And the slaves were convinced that they were lost. Until one day, one of the slaves saw land in this distance. He saw birds and seagulls flying. So he told his captain, and the captain turned the boat towards this island. And they stopped there to restock their supplies as they were low. They needed fresh water, they needed fruits, they needed food, they needed provisions to continue their travels. So these slaves disembarked from their boat, began to gather supplies, and one of the slaves saw this beautiful bird, this multicolored bird. And he chased the bird into the forest, and he caught the bird and caged the bird. And the slave started to load the supplies after a few days, a few weeks even, to restock the supplies. They started to load all the barrels, and the boat became very heavy. Okay, and they had this bird. And they fed the bird, and they talked to the bird, and they went on their way. And weeks and weeks and weeks and months passed, and they were still traveling on this boat. Somewhat traveling in circles because the captain was lost to an extent. So the bird began to pick up their language and say things to them, and they were entertained and amazed by this bird, the intelligence of this bird, this parrot rather. One day there was another storm, and most of the cargo shifted to one side of the boat, and the boat began to take on water, and the boat began to sink. So the slaves, frantically started to throw some of the supplies off the boat, and one of them freed the bird and said, go free. But the bird became so accustomed to the cage that he flew up high up on the mast of this boat and just looked down at them and laughed, ha ha ha, ha ha ha, you're gonna die, you're gonna die. And he taunted them and taunted them and taunted them. But the bird could only fly so far because he had been caged for so long, and they clipped his wings. He forgot that he could fly. So the boat went down, continued to go down, and the parrot continued to make fun of these slaves. You're gonna die, you're gonna die, you're gonna die, over and over again, until the water reached the mast, and the boat took the bird with it, and the bird died. What does this Odun teach us? Never to make fun of people, even if they're your enemy. Never to make fun of their evil, because you're next. Okay, this is taboo in this Odun, to be cruel to people despite your situation. William Rivers are here, one Rumela, Iworirote, Iboru, Iboya, Ibochiche.